Hello, people. Thank you again joining us in our group and channel In Il Maurice pour tous. Today, we are welcoming a linguist, a human rights activist, and also former attorney. He's an Imam. Your name is Dai Abdullah. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for making this interview to happen. And you are one of the rare Imam in the entire world to be openly gay. And you were born in a Christian in an Afro-American family. And at the age of 30, you decided to convert to Islam. My first question to you is, why Islam?
Okay. Well, from the time I was 8, I realized that the religion I had been born into was not satisfactory to me. I always had doubts. I always felt like I was always begging to a God for answers. Whereas, and in talking with my parents, because we had a very open relationship, our parents said, if you have questions, ask them. And if they could help us find answers, they would do so. So I told them this, and they said, well, you need to have something to hold on to, a faith to hold on to in the times when you have a need. So they helped me in terms that I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. There were a lot of people from all over the world there. For example, one of my classmates in school, elementary school, his father was a Black American in military, married a Korean woman, so he was Black and Korean, and Buddhist. So I learned about Buddhism through that exposure. So I had Jewish friends, I had friends, Muslim friends, and things of that nature as well. And I had an opportunity to learn a little bit more and various types of Christianity. But it wasn't until I was studying Chinese in Beijing, China, that I came across one of my classmates. His name was Ma. And he asked me one day, do you know anything about Islam? And I told him I knew about NOI, Nation of Islam, here in the US, mostly African American, and one of my elder brothers was also a member at that time when I was younger. And I said, yeah, I knew about that. He says, no, the real Islam. So it perked my interest, and I started talking with him. And lunchtime, dinner time, we would sit and talk, discuss classroom work, but also talk about Islam. So one day he invited me to the mosque, which is still there. It's called Cow Street Mosque. And actually it's a pagoda that was transferred into a mosque more than 1,100 years ago, maybe 1,200 years ago. So I went there, he taught me how to do the wudu, and then I went in for the khutbah. I didn't understand Arabic at that time, but when they did the khutbah in Chinese, it made sense. So that started off my interest. And I would go like twice, 3 times a month for the khutbahs. And then he gave me my first Quran, which was in Chinese and Arabic. And I still have that Quran today. And that started my interest. And I kept going back and forth over that year. And then when I went to Taiwan the next year for like 2.5 years to continue my Chinese language studies, I went to a Saudi Arabian mosque there in Taipei, and it was there that I saw the major difference. The Islam in China was softer, kinder, more open, because Ma's family had been Muslim for over 1,300 years. Whereas the ones in Saudi Arabia, a lot of the people it was a Saudi Wahhabist mosque. They were very exclusionary. They were very hateful towards people who were different. And the additional thing is that the son of the Imam had just come back from Saudi Arabia. He had been sent back from Saudi Arabia for the 3rd time, having been caught having sex with men. So I knew then that they sequestered him away from people, and whenever he was allowed to come, like for Juma and things like that, I was never able to talk to him to tell him I'm gay too, because there was no language that we shared that I could tell him this. Mm-hmm. So I felt very sad about that and how they mistreated him as a human being. So I knew that Islam could be more loving, more kind, more understanding, and welcoming to a person like myself than the way in which in modern times people understand Islam to be.
You say you were searching for a kind of answer into religion. Did you find your answers and a kind of peace in Islam?
Yes, I did. See, the thing is that, as I said before, I always felt that I was supplicating, meaning always requesting for answers. But with Islam, in the process of prayer, is that I surrender my issues, I surrender my questions, I surrender my problems to Allah. And the beautiful thing is that when I let go, Allah gives me inner peace. So when the answers come, sometimes quickly, I have an answer. I have space for an answer. And other times when there is no answer, I have the inner peace to be patient, to await for the right time. And sometimes it may be a little kid in the street who says something, or I read something in a book, or I overhear someone talking, or I talk to someone, and I get a better understanding. But it still allows me to have that inner peace that I've been able to enjoy over the last 36 years.
And I have to ask
So I'm
you,
satisfied.
how did your coming out happen?
Okay, I came out as a kid. I always knew that I was different. Um, my mother told me when I was 40, I showed her a picture. Hold on a second, let me show it to you. It's right here. Here's a picture. I don't know, can you see it clearly?
I do.
It's two little boys. And when I was 40, I had bought this picture in New York City at a card shop. And I went home. I had just come back from overseas. And I went home to visit my parents. And I said, hey, look at this wonderful card. And she says, oh, that's a beautiful card. But that was you at 4 years old. Always talking about your little boyfriend. And you were going to get married. And you were going to be the daddy and all of that. So at 4 years old, I was expressing my true nature, my true self. So that was my first really coming out. But I grew to know that you don't talk about these things with people. And so as I grew up, became more silent. But when I was in junior high school, I met a boy named Otis, and we became good friends. He became my boyfriend. And for 2.5 years, we spent time together, eventually starting to have sex. And then from there, in my senior year of high school, he committed suicide. And I never knew exactly why he did so. I think from my understanding of mental health issues today as an adult, I think he was suffering from depression, and also knowing back in the 1960s how people mistreated LGBT people. That may have been the pressure on him. And about a year before he died, his mother had died, and he had a close relationship with his mother. So that may have been a combination of several things that caused it to happen. So I knew then that my parents were very understanding. I came out to them at that time. They were very understanding, meaning that they allowed me to have some time off from school. I took a few days off, and I went to the funeral. But I was a senior in high school. I was graduating soon. So I had to get back to my schoolwork, which kept me from dwelling on the thoughts. And when I graduated from high school, we had a ritual in my family. And that was my father, when you get your high school diploma, you would surrender that to him. And at that point, you became your own man or woman. And so at 15, almost ready to turn 16, I was going to go off to college. My father said, you're your own person. So as long as you live in the house with us, you abide by our rules and regulations. But your choices, where you want to be, what you want to do in your career, and those types of things are up to you. And so that relationship with my parents until their death was always one, a very open and welcoming one. And they respected my positions and I respected theirs. And we didn't always agree on everything, but I was always welcome to come home, no matter what. So that to me meant that I had the respect of my parents and enjoyed it no matter what.
What a beautiful family, Imam. When you converted to Islam a long time ago, at that time, did you want it to make a difference or to prove that Islam is not against homosexuality?
No, at that time, that was not my purpose, nor was it my focus. It was only after a few years of studying, and particularly when I went to the Middle East, after I finished my Chinese studies, I went back to Georgetown for 9 months, and then immediately I was in the Middle East, in Cairo for a year, Amman, Jordan for a year, and Damascus for a year. And during those 3 years, I had exposure to a number of different people from different Muslim cultures. And I came to understand better how in each of these cultures, homosexuality was a hidden norm. So it was with that understanding as I became more fluent in the language and learned more and interacting with people from different cultures, then the question of homosexuality in Islam came up, and that's when I started my research and studies. And it took me several years after law school and then working and living in Saudi Arabia was when I did real research on it and came to the conclusion, an unpublished thesis that I did, that said that homosexuality was permissible in Islam and that the prohibition, the taboos came from the culture, not the religion, not the faith, not from the Quran.
I was about to ask you, and I will probably ask you in a few minutes, but before that, I just want to tell our viewers that in 2011, you helped created an LGBTQ plus mosque in Washington.
Yes.
Was it difficult? Were you threatened at that time?
It had its difficulties, but being physically threatened was not a problem. Although I had a situation that happened, I think it was 2013, two fellows showed up from the Northern Virginia community, Muslim community, to say that it wasn't right for what I was doing. And I took them to the door and told them bye-bye and went on about my business. The difficulty in running the mosque after several years is that I found there were a lot of people who came, gay and non-gay people who came, young and old came, men and women, transgender, we all participated together. But the problem was that people came, but they weren't willing to give to the community to help me out. And after 4 years of me doing this pretty much on my own, you know, and I wasn't getting paid or anything like that. It was my time and energy and money donated to do this. I said, if I can't get enough people to at least help, come and set up, help me break down the things, you know, things like that, then you're not really respecting me, nor are you respecting wanting to build a community. So I stopped the mosque.
We come back to that point you touched before. As an imam, can you tell us what the Quran says about homosexuality? You studied languages, Quran, and etc. So tell us a little more about what the Quran says on this subject.
Well, the Quran doesn't really say anything. It's how the person interprets the material that is there. And there are many places in the Quran that talks about human beings. And LGBT people are human beings. And so if you use that as your filter, that helps you understand what is the best kind of personality, best type of character you should have. You can find that in like El Rum, Surah 30, 21 through 24. You can find other parts, I think it's 27, 28, I think, where it talks about that you should seek someone who's your partner. You know, and then also in 24, 30 through 32, it talks about marriage. And in 24, 31, it talks about men who have no desire for women. So it doesn't take rocket science to know who do they have desire for. And then in 24:60, it talks about women who lay fallow, women who don't get pregnant, women who don't produce. So it means that lesbians fall in that concept. So we have to be able to broaden our view of what it means to be within that concept. It's not limited to the sexual binary that heterosexuals tend to use. And with that, in 24:32, there's the message says that marry from the single among you, even if it's from your slaves. Now, in some Qurans, they put in parentheses, male or female. They're trying to gear your attention away from the slave, that could be same sex or not. And I tell them that that has to do with a different kind of aspect of Islamic law and not about who you are. In Islam, a person could have been married before, divorced, and now they're eligible to be married again. There's no stigma. So you marry someone who's single. If a gay person messes with a married person, it's wrong, period. You're breaking the Islamic law. But if you marry someone or have a relationship with someone who's single and you both agree to have a contract to be each other's partner, mate, spouse, it's the same way for all human beings. You have your partner, your spouse, and the language itself also produces that. Because Zawj has many meanings.
Mm.
Therefore, you can be someone's partner, their mate, their companion, and still be within the framework of Islamic law and Quranic messaging.
Imam, you're fully aware about the situation that happened in Mauritius in 2018, where our gay pride got cancelled by an extremist Muslim group. In the first time in decades, we have a situation like that in Mauritius. What is your opinion on this?
My opinion is that people will always try to change something that they're uncomfortable with. They cannot openly accept people to be different. And this is a problem, but it's not just within Islam, it's with people all over the world, all different religions. They don't like people who think differently than what they believe is the quote unquote true way of understanding that faith, understanding that religion. So it's not uncommon to do that, but it's the same way like with ISIS. ISIS is very much different than the way most Muslims practice their religion. So it's the same kind of thing. ISIS believes that their way is the way, and then they take violence as a way of doing it. They remain political versus staying within the religious confines of having differences and continuing to still practice their faith.
You know, since these sad events, there is a perception that young gay Muslim in Mauritius is scared to come out as LGBTQ. Do you have a message for them?
Well, I do have a message for them, and the message has two parts to it. The first part is that you have to believe in yourself. You have to know deeply within yourself and have your relationship with your creator, with Allah, that you're okay. And that only comes with your own personal development of that relationship. I say to people, if you've had your Iqra, just like the Prophet had, then you and God are okay. You and Allah are okay. Because no one can tell you what your relationship should be. If you're fearful of that idea, then you're going to always be fearful of everything else. The second part is that you have to fight your battles as you best decide to do so. And I think it would be foolish for a person to go out into a group of people who could do violence to you and show up and say, I'm gay and all of this. That's madness. So you have to, fight your battles that you can work with.
All right. Imam, do you have any plans in the future to travel to some Muslim countries, or why not Mauritius, to, if I can say that, to educate people on Islam and homosexuality?
Well, that's something that's potentially available. But in terms of traveling to these places now, I'm much older. I can't run as fast as I used to. So there's no need to put myself in physical danger. But through technology, one can always meet with people and talk to them and respond to their questions. 20, 30 years ago, going to the places was fine. I had no problems. But now over the last 15 years or so, my face has become very well known around the world. The Al Jazeera interview that was done in December of 2013, several 100 million people became aware of who I was. I don't know those 200 million people. So.
Speaking about the Arab countries, you are aware that Tunisia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and many more still criminalized homosexuality. In your own opinion, do you think people in those countries are ready to accept homosexuality, or it's a government who doesn't want to hear anything about it?
It's the government. It's political. The governments use those who they disagree with as political ploys, political issues in order for them to say we're good religious people, because people in Muslim states tend to follow, well, if the person says they're Muslim and they do certain types of things, and they're a good person, when actually their politics can be horrible. They can be oppressive. They can be destructive. They even murder people because they have different political views, but they say, I'm a good Muslim. So the idea is that they take LGBT people, they take people's race, they take people's political views and demonize them. And because the masses, the vast majority of them don't have the education to understand the Quran more thoroughly, because they've been trained to understand Islam through their own culture. And their culture says it's a taboo, so then their form of Islam says it's a taboo. So this is how they control people. Their thinking.
All right, Imam, our group, Une île Maurice pour tous, which means in English, a Mauritius for all, is celebrating its 2 years in June. What is your wish to us?
Well, my wish to you is that we continue to grow and understand ourselves, first of all, and then secondly, to treat each other within our community with respect. That's a major problem. I think because of colonialism, many people of color take on white people's understanding of what being gay is. And we have histories that are very different from that. And we need to change our points of view and understand each other as human beings and people, respect each other, and don't get involved in the nastiness and the bitterness that comes from the trauma of being traumatized in their families. And if we can overcome those particular things, then you build a real connected community. And from there, you can feel a sense of peace. You don't have to be public per se, but in your private lives and in the lives of those that you know, you respect each other, come to understand each other, and be supportive of each other.
Thank you so much, Imam Dai Abdullah. I remind our viewers that you are a linguist, a human rights activist, an imam, and of course, a former attorney. We thank you very much for that interview, and we hope that the message will go worldwide. People will be more aware and more educated about what Islam and the Quran says about homosexuality. Imam, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a good day.